Hello, everyone, and welcome to the March 23rd Mapleton Council meeting. This is 1 year since we declared emergency in the Township of Mapleton, as of today, March 23rd. And we've come a long way in the last 12 months, including our vaccination clinic that we held here last week, which went very well. We had 244 people vaccinated at that clinic. And I know that the medical clinic has also been vaccinating people with the AstraZeneca, which is great to know. And we move on and we carry on as we have been for the last 12 months. And as more people get vaccinated and more vaccine becomes available, we will go from orange to yellow to hopefully down to green in no time. And then maybe some of us will be able to travel to different places in the country, not outside the country. So Rick, you got to stay here in Gulf. You can't go anywhere else. All right, he's good. And I know Chief Richardson, he's got his vaccination done as well last week, as did many of the other members of the fire department in the morning. I think Amy, you got yours as well. So I took a photo of Amy and sent that to her, as well as a few other people I took some photos of as I was there. And like I said, that clinic went very smoothly. There wasn't long lineups. There wasn't long, people having to be scared. The needle was very tiny. It didn't hurt at all, right, Amy? So I know that some people were a little worried about the needle, but it is a very tiny needle. Anyway, we'll move on with the agenda, and I'll ask the clerk to do a roll call, please.
Thank you, sir. Starting with Councillor Dennis Craven.
Present.
Councillor Paul Douglas.
Present.
Councillor Michael Martin.
Here.
Councillor Marlene Ottens.
Here.
And finally, Mayor Greg Davidson.
I'm here, sir. Thank you so much for that. Any declaration of pecuniary interest today? Seeing none, we'll move on with confirmation of minutes. I have item number 4 here, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on March 9th, 2021 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda package. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Ottens. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. If there's a few hiccups here, council, bear with me. The clerk and I have started a new process here on the resolutions, which I don't have them in front of me. I'm using the agenda just like you are, and we're going to move it a little quicker as I won't be signing them and trying to write everything down. So we move on down to item number 7 on the agenda, because we don't have items 5 and 6. So item number 7 is a delegation from SEMA, Ryan Steckley. Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Davidson. Councilors, thanks for having me today. I'm here just to talk about the asset management report submitted for the water systems. I'm Ryan Steckley. I'm a senior project manager at SEMA, and I've been assisting with the asset management projects on the water side. We've submitted our report, remains in draft format, waiting comments. And so this was a good opportunity to brief you today on some of the findings. Ryan,
if I could just stop you there for 1 second. Just so you know, Ryan, usually a delegation is 10 minutes. You have as much time as you need to help us to understand the conditions. So take your time.
Okay, thank you. Can I share my screen and flip over to a presentation now? Is that visible on your end?
It is, sir. Thank you.
So today I just want to go over just a brief overview of some of the projects that we have ongoing with Mapleton. Look at sort of the background into asset management and the requirements for it. Then look over the the condition assessment for the water system, and then we've identified a few project packages and some of the capital planning works that we will discuss at the end. So as you know, the water condition assessment and wastewater condition assessments have been completed, and we're working towards finalizing those reports. Those reports then and project information will then feed into the master plan that we're also working on. We have the elevated tank design that is well underway, as well on the wastewater side, the lagoon cleanout and pumping station upgrades, well capacity upgrades, and then also upgrades at the wastewater lagoons for nitrification and capacity upgrades. So just a little bit of background into the requirements for asset management. Under OREG 588, it stipulates that municipalities need to complete asset management plans. For the core infrastructure, these plans need to be in place for July 1st of this year. And then the plan is updated every 5 years. We have a little graph just on the left-hand side for sort of the different levels of asset management. So down at this bottom end of the graph, this is sort of failure. So when an asset fails, it goes and gets replaced with sort of like for like replacement. And that's one way to sort of manage the system. Then there is sort of interval when replaced when fully depreciated. So if we say a pump has a life of 50 years, sort of at that 50-year mark, then that pump would be replaced, even if it's sort of, you know, still operating and and still able to be reliable in those conditions. But you know, at any point, you know, it's more likely that it could, you know, be a run to failure item. And then later on, as you bring in other aspects of asset management, you can prioritize these replacements based on starting, you know, with more risk. You know, what are some of the risks of failure? And so then you might want to replace those assets sooner. And you know, the consequences of failure as well. So if this pump were to completely break, you may not be able to provide fire flow for your town. So that's sort of some of the other consequences of failure that need to be considered in later stages. And then sort of this final stage also, you know, consider some of the community benefits and costs as part of the asset management program. Just an overview of the two water systems that we looked at for Drayton and Warfield. For Drayton, there's 2 groundwater wells that pump to an underground reservoir. Chlorine is injected, as well as sodium silicate for iron control. And then there's 5 high lift pumps that pump from the reservoir to the distribution system. In the future, this distribution system will have a little water tower as part of the infrastructure there. Similar setup in Moorefield. The 2 pumps pump to a standpipe, so it's an above grade reservoir at that location. And then the 4 high lift pumps pump to the water distribution system. So our condition assessment methodology, we start up at the top, gathering physical information. So this was done for our site visits to each of the sites, and we walked around with the operator of the facility, who also pointed out some items. Then our scoring is applied, sort of the assumed condition with regards to sort of physical condition, but as well input from the operator allowed us to determine, you know, if the valve was holding or not. Some of that information you can't gain by just looking at the equipment. And from there, then we were able to develop our asset inventory. And this is sort of a database full of the conditions of the equipment and any background information that we have about when it was installed, and also the sort of estimated cost for replacement. And we break it down into the different categories. So there's the buildings, which includes the structural, mechanical, and electrical equipment for the physical structure. And then we get into process, which includes the pumps, piping, and other treatment equipment. And then we get into electrical and controls, which includes the electrical system, generator, the controller for the station, and any instruments like flow meters and such. And then we also have a final component where we reviewed the facility with regards to site works. So from there, then we evaluate the condition, looking at the remaining useful life, the physical and performance condition assessment from our inspections. And then we look at developing consequences of failure and a risk analysis for each piece of equipment. From there, then replacement requirements are recommended. And then finally, for project packages, we take those individual replacements and try and group them together, either by similar equipment being replaced at the facilities or by the facilities themselves. So we might look at packaging an upgrade. If there's going to be a pump replacement, maybe it makes sense to replace some of the piping and some of the valves at the same time. So that's sort of how some of those projects can be grouped together if they are similar. And for some of our condition assessment findings. So starting here in Drayton, just looking at the building for the structural and architectural assessments, we found some paint failures, cracking and spalling on exterior and interior walls, cracks in the slab, and possible leaks in the chemical area. And so you can see some of the, from the photos, we've got some, this is the block veneer has failed near the door. We do have some staining that's occurring near this louver. We have a damaged door where the materials corroded through at the base of the door, likely due to water sitting in that area. Some cracks in the foundation wall have been found, some cracks on the floor. There's some signs that the roof hatches are leaking. There are also some chemical damage on the containment areas for where the chemicals are stored. And just some areas where it looks like water is ponding on the floor is also apparent. For inside the station, for some of the electrical assessments, we noted that the building alarm system lacks bandwidth for additional alarms. There's no emergency light for an exit sign. So just some of the things that aren't quite meeting the electrical code. Unsafe proximity of electrical equipment. So just in certain locations with the facility being fairly tight, having equipment in front of certain electrical panels, the requirement is to have a few feet in between open space in front of every panel. The generator was found in poor condition, not meeting the TSSA requirements. And also it's located above the reservoir. I think we see it in the next photo. So there is some high risk with the generator being close to the reservoir hatches. Some corrosion is apparent on the MCC and circuit breakers. There's some failed weather stripping on some of the panels, and that's allowing some of the corrosion or corrosive atmosphere within the station to enter inside the panels. So some advanced corrosion happening inside some of the electrical equipment as well. And it's reaching its end of its useful life as well. For some of the mechanical assets, there is the diesel fuel system that's located inside. We've got a portable dehumidifier trying to help out with some of the humidity in the air, which is leading to some of the corrosion. And having the chemicals stored inside with some of the chlorine off-gassing, we also note that at other facilities where having that chlorine in the air also advances some of the corrosion on the electrical equipment as well as the process equipment. For the process side of things, high lift pump number 3 was not in operation. So that would be to replace that pump. High lift pump number 5, it doesn't have so just the way it's set up, the flows from pump number 5 are not metered. And from what I understand, that's sort of the largest pump sort of required for maintaining fire flows within the town. So it would be good to get a flow meter on there just to help out the ministry with their records for how much water has been produced at the facility. Some of the chemical tanks are not airtight, and so just open top tanks and perforations through the top allow some of that chlorine to off gas and lead to some of the corrosion issues. You can see some of the corrosion happening on the valves and flanges. Some of the equipment is fairly corroded there. We also note for this air release valve that it looks like there's some leaks happening from the top of it, but as well it's impacted by corrosion in the atmosphere as well. Here's the access hatch to the reservoir located right next to the generator. So it'd be nice for the generator upgrade to move that outside of the station and take away that potential risk to the water system. On the instrumentation side of things, there was just a lack of level sensors in the wells. So you can monitor the water levels within the wells by putting a pressure transducer in there. And then some of the pressure gauges were non-operational and looked to be an older vintage, so could be replaced. For the site works, the drains that are around the access hatch to the reservoirs were clogged. It looks like it's part of the vegetation that's nearby. And then operations also noted difficulty to access the site for the chemical deliveries. I guess there's some water ponding that occurs as well along the gravel driveway. And some of the vegetation near this hatch could be cut back just to prevent some of the buildup of leaves next to the hatch every time it gets opened. It needs to be cleaned off before that will seal down again. Now over to Moorefield. A little bit a better condition than Drayton overall. There's still sort of some cracks associated with the chemical containment area. There was some rotten wood panels. I don't think we show the picture of those. Downspouts were torn and the splash pad's a little bit too far away. So just some items to address for the building envelope there. For the process electrical assessment, again, no emergency lighting on the chemical rooms. Some of the storage equipment is impacting the distance in front of the electrical panels again. We see certain corrosion happening on the electrical conduits in the chemical rooms, and the well control panel is in poor condition, and the conduits misaligned outside. Inside the station, regarding for the mechanical HVAC equipment, you can see that the electric heater here has been impacted by some corrosion. And then we were wondering about just doing a ventilation review. Just the exhaust fan looks to be undersized, and that would help out with some of the corrosion issues that are taking place inside. We found some sealant leaking on the tank exterior. So that's the outdoor water storage tank. Hopefully you can see from the picture there, but about 2/3 of the way up, that's where sort of the staining starts. And so that is an indicator that it's just below the water line where those leaks are occurring on the tank. It is a bolted steel tank, and so it's just a matter of checking out the sealant from the inside just to make sure it's still intact, or replace it while the inspection is taking place. We found some corrosion again on the process piping. Again, the chemical system as well has open ports in the top of it, allowing some of that corrosive atmosphere to be present. The pressure tanks were seriously corroded as well, and we should look at replacing those. And again, there's you can see that some of the couplings have more advanced corrosion than some of the adjacent flanges. And so it's really depending on the type of material that's being used in the facility as well for what's being impacted by the corrosive atmosphere. For instrumentation side of things, we found just advanced corrosion on the flow meter. And that sort of wraps up Moorefield. So just getting into some of the capital planning estimates, we've provided a summary table. So this third column here is just the overall total cost that we had estimated for each of the project groupings. And then we break that number down on whether it's an immediate 1 to 5 years or a 6 to 10 year sort of effort as well from our estimations. So the first one is about the Drayton and Warfield's chemical delivery upgrades, addressing the air tightness of the chemical tanks, trying to reduce the corrosive atmosphere within the station. The second one here is about the facility repairs. So that's addressing those cracks in the foundation, replacing the doors and louvers where we found deficiencies. Then we have the Drayton and Moorefield electrical and SCADA upgrades. So at Drayton, there is the use of still older chart recorder panels there, and with the new PLC, those chart recorder panels could just be incorporated within the new controller at the station. In Murfield, the replacement of the outdoor control panel and electrical conduits that we saw for that exterior panel. Drayton process piping and equipment upgrades. So this would include the replacement of pump number 3 and putting a flow meter on pump number 5. There's also been some talk that pump number 5, after it operates, impacts some of the distribution system, and so some of the leaks are found at water services after that larger pump has been operating. So it'd just be something to consider there if you are replacing pump number 3, just to take a look at pump 5 if there's anything you can do to sort of reduce some of the pressure coming off that pump when it starts. Flow meter replacement at both Drayton and Moorefield. The generator replacement at Drayton and Moorefield. For Drayton, that would include the generator replacement as well as the MCC panel, because it's reached the end of its useful life. And locating that generator outside to reduce the risk reduce the risk on the reservoir. Then we had some process replacements. So this would be some of the chemical pumps, more piping valve replacements, and noting that running high lift pump 1 and 2 to failure is probably something that you can do with low risk if there's a spare pump that is on site and can be replaced easily when those pumps finally reach the end of their life. We noted some HVAC improvements at Drayton and Moorefield, so that's been lumped together, and trying to reduce the humidity in the station, which will also help reduce some of the corrosion. Instrumentation upgrades, replacing pressure gauges, instruments, and analyzers. We had noted here for a Drayton landscaping project where that is addressing the driveway, trying to eliminate those ponding areas, and removing the bushes around the reservoir where leaves are falling and impacting the drains. We had the structural assessment of the reservoir. So here we weren't able to get into the interior of the reservoir during our initial inspection. So we're just recommending further study be done. And so potentially this could be an ROV inspection that we can get that information remotely on video. Or if the reservoir could be drained down, then it could be a manned entry for the inspection of the reservoir. As well, a roof inspection. So we couldn't get up on the roof during the time of the inspection, but we would recommend it. Just there's some leakage that's happening, and just the overall state of the roof itself to get an idea of whether it should be replaced. Process repairs at Moorefield. This is some of the pressure tanks and flow control valves could be eliminated. So with those tanks are corroding, so there is a possibility switching the pumps to variable frequency drives allows the control methodology to be changed a little bit. Rather than putting back pressure tanks into the system there. Murfield Sanitary Services. So this is just a study to evaluate the addition of a washroom facility to that station, and the standpipe inspection and isolation. So to investigate the leaks of the standpipe at Moorefield, we'd want to try and get in there for an inspection at some point, just to identify where some of those leaks are present, and plan for a rehabilitation to seal up those seams as part of the tank construction. This is just an illustration of sort of the total of the immediate repairs, the 1 to 5 year repairs, and then the long-term asset renewals for the 6 to 10 year period. As part of these costs, we took the sort of estimated replacement cost for the equipment. So let's say we had a $5,000 flow meter to put in. We then add 100% construction costs. So we add another $5,000, assuming for the installation of that equipment. And then we add on some estimating contingencies. There's always sort of a 5% contingency allowed for just what might happen during construction for other items that might arise. We have a 20% estimating contingency just based on sort of that methodology. And we also include an engineering percentage as part of these projects as well. And that's sort of how we've identified the cost for each of these project sheets. And that is the end of my presentation today for the asset management report.
Thank you, Ryan, for your report. And if we could stop the sharing of the screen, please. Just before I continue on, I'm just going to advise Mr. Mattina that item 9.5.1 will be coming right after we're done this delegation here, just to give you that heads up. So another advisement here, just it was mentioned by Ryan that about the infrastructure, that date has been changed from July 1st, 2021 to 2022. An email came in this morning from the Ministry of Infrastructure at about 11 a.m. So we have another year before that asset management planning needs to be in place. Okay, Council, we'll open it up for questions for Mr. Steckley, and I'm going to go right to Mr. Douglas.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Ryan. That's a pretty comprehensive review. Obviously, very critical infrastructure we're talking about here, and a bit concerning about the $1.8 million of immediate upgrades or repairs required. So I guess my question through you, Your Worship, to maybe Sam, is just, moving forward, what's the plan to, I guess, develop a plan of how to address these repairs, and secondly, the funding for it, because I don't believe that we have that in our budget currently. So trying to figure out how we move forward with rectifying these issues.
We'll go to Mr. Mattina. If need be, we'll go to Mr. Morrison afterwards about the financing. Mr. Mattina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Douglas. So the plan would be now to try to schedule these repairs in over the number of years that they are recommended, and determine what the impacts will be to the water wastewater rates in order to fund this, because it is a user pay user pay account. So we'd have to assess the criticality and how quickly we want to perform these repairs over that specified period of time, and determine the impact, and then go from there.
Mr. Morrison, do you have anything further to add? Apparently not. All right, so if you remember, Councillor Douglas, last year we increased our water and wastewater rates, and this would be one of the reasons why we did that, because there's certainly needs for replacements and repairs, and as you see here, it's over $4 million. Mr. Morrison?
At this point, I would agree with my colleague, Mr. Martini. We would have to review what projects are already in our capital projects, which ones are not. We'd have to assess the timing of some of these projects. They're well over, some of the projects are not due for 5 years from now. So it will probably require us to look at the long-term impact on the user rates that's moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Further questions? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I'm wondering about some of the items mentioned. This is probably addressed to Mr. Steckley. Some of the items mentioned in his report, things like missing exit lights and emergency lights, electrical proximity not being appropriate, a generator not at TSSA requirements. Is that because of changing regulations, or are these things that have always been absent and should have been done years ago?
Mr. Steckley?
Yeah, I don't have a good perspective on what some of the older regulations were, but I know specifically for some of the TSSA requirements, it is sort of a changing landscape there, that what was accepted in the past is no longer sort of accepted now, especially if you go to install the new equipment to replace it. So that's some of the perspective there. With regards to some of the exit signs, potentially those should have been addressed at the time of the original construction.
Thank you, Mr. Steckley. Counselor Craven.
At any rate, is our water safe to drink?
Mr. Steckley.
I believe so. Yep. I think that's a little bit outside the scope of our condition assessment here, but yes.
That'll be
Good.
discussed at the next item on the agenda that will be moved up. Mr. Craven, that's
Yep.
what that touches on. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So like Councillor Douglas, I too found this a very comprehensive report. It was pretty fascinating reading through it. You know, it might be one case where, you know, it's a good thing that the general public doesn't typically tune into our council meetings, because some of these pictures are, you know, I'm not an engineer, obviously, that's why I found this report fascinating, but just by the, you know, by viewing the condition of some of this equipment, you know, I think we run a risk of, you know, public confidence in our water system. Now, that's just me. So I guess my question would be to Mr. Steckley, you know, with your experience, you know, just because a valve or just because, you know, a connection looks particularly corroded, you know, are we, you know, have we been lucky with our water quality to date, or are we at risk of potentially impacting our water quality if some of these repairs, these imminent repairs, aren't addressed?
Mr. Steckley.
Yeah. So I think you've nailed one thing on the head there. Just looking at a piece of equipment and seeing that it has some corrosion as part of it, that valve may last another 10 years, depending on that. So we've gone through and just made our best educated guess right now from sort of the physical condition, as well as the inputs from the operators. So for example, too, that, you know, the lifespan of some of the pumps that are out there, you know, maybe 20 years and then you replace them, but the operating authority, you know, didn't highlight that there's been any issues with any of the pumps. So that's like for the pumps that have been operating well, right? So we do have to keep that in mind as we are making recommendations for it. Does that overall impact the risk to the water system? I think it's from a supply perspective, maybe that's more true than from a quality perspective, depending on what we're looking at. So the basis for these water systems is that chlorine is added to the water in sufficient quantity. And so we didn't notice any issues sort of with the chlorination system. We believe that's, you know, to be robust, and as issues arise, those pieces of equipment can be easily replaced. On the supply perspective, you know, there is a chance if you do get a pump or a valve failure, that there may be a case where you're not able to supply water to the town in all of those instances. And so that's where the approach for the asset management project is to look at those pieces of equipment, the ones with the most corrosion. You know, if we look at replacing that ahead of time, does that ensure that we have capacity well into the future and that supply is maintained? Did I answer all your questions there, Councillor Martin?
Yes, thank you. Like, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? But sometimes it doesn't tell the true story. So thank you for that. It was just, you know, you kind of look at the pictures and you get more concerned than perhaps you should, or maybe not, right? So thanks for clarifying that. I do have a follow-up, Mr. Mayor, if I can.
I think we'll go to Councilor Douglas first, and then you can follow up. Councilor
Yeah.
Douglas?
Thank you. Just another question for Mr. Steckley. So once the water tower gets constructed and commissioned, it kind of changes some of the operation of the pumping, I'm assuming, with the pump station. Just, is there any consideration to maybe that future change in some of these requirements? Like, is there maybe less reliance on some of the high lift pumps once the water tower gets commissioned? And how does that maybe get reflected in some of these recommendations?
Yeah, that's a great question, because when the tower is online, that does take some of the pumping capacity requirements away from the Drayton pumping station. So as part of it, looking at an overall review of the installed pump capacity at Drayton, I think that would be a great idea. It would enable you to just focus on how much pumping capacity you need right now to supply the tower. The only exception is in the future, if that tower has to come offline for maintenance for, say, a few weeks to a few months, depending on whether the say the interior lining needs to be recoated, then we're almost reverting back to the current system where those pumps have to be online all the time supplying pressure. And so we don't want to necessarily just jump right ahead and remove sort of the biggest pump and not replace it. But keeping that in mind, doing an overall evaluation of the pumping system is probably a good idea, and for consideration in the future on whether you bring a pump in just for that specific requirement in the future, or whether you look at replacing some of those pumps like for like and maintaining that pumping capacity.
Mr. Douglas, were you getting at the point of pump number 3, whether we need to replace it, or would the water tower be sufficient to not replace that? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, just trying to look at big picture, and if we can maybe reduce some of the scope now, in consideration of what's happening in the not too distant future. But Mr. Steckley raises some good points. But yeah, maybe there's potential as down the road you do bring in a pump temporarily when you need one if you're doing maintenance on the water tower. But no, that answered my question. I think that's all I have for now.
All right, thank you. Mr. Martin, go ahead with your other question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Matina. Not looking to point fingers or anything. I'm more curious. Some of the stuff that came out of this assessment, like vegetation growth around some of the hatches, the landscaping stuff. Is this something that, I guess, who would be responsible for that? Typically, we've obviously got Aqua that looks after our day-to-day operations. Is this something that your department would typically, oversee, or do you wait for Aqua to, kind of identify these things? Like some of them kind of like, they seem a little obvious. Like, I don't know that we would need Mr. Steckley's services to identify that, is causing a seal issue typically, right? But again, what would be the normal process for handling some of that stuff?
Mr. Bettina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Martin. So without pointing any fingers to anyone, really, these are incidental deficiencies that should really be identified on an ongoing basis from presence at the facility. So we have Aqua going there almost every day. We have our in-house water and wastewater operator, which we have one on staff. That person doesn't get there as often as the operator, as Aqua would. So I would think it would be a team effort to identify any of these deficiencies as they're observed, and to note them and to share the information with us. And we're continually preparing repair plans, capital plans, things like that. I think it's everyone's responsibility to identify and bring those things forward. So it's a combination of everyone's effort.
Thank you, Mr. Bettina. Further questions? when I looked at this report, and I go with Councillor Martin, I was quite fascinated by it, and I read it over. I had Mr. Wheeler actually print it out for me so I could go over it and fine tooth. And being a layman, looking at this and looking at my former business practices, as a business operator, it included the regular maintenance of equipment and to make sure it was ran in good condition at all times, and to have some spare parts available to replace that I could replace before I'm to call in someone to replace to do major work. So keeping everything clean and tidy was very important for my business. And I can see how that should be what the attitude is of this as well. This is Mapleton's business, providing water. And we should be, through our staff, as Ms. Martinez said, and through Aqua, maintaining our equipment at high proficiency. And as I look at this report, I see that there is a breakdown in keeping equipment in reliable condition. Why is it that there's pressure gauges that are broken, not replaced? We have corrosion that can be cleaned. And if I had ran my vehicles, like my vehicles, I always clean off the battery terminals, clear off the corrosion so that the battery terminals work properly. Proper ventilation in the area when it comes to chemical storage is paramount. That's a health and safety issue, or could be a health and safety issue. A pump not working, and I don't understand how we have a pump that just sits there not working and we don't look at replacing it or fixing it. So there's definitely some issues that I see that need to be in here. So I guess I'm going to ask you, Mr. Steckley, the lack of the pressure gauges, they're only a $200 part. Is there another? There must be another way that they're looking at that pressure, but what's the most reliable way, the best way?
Yeah, for pressure gauges, just the visual indication, you replace it with another pressure gauge. There's also online instrumentation for pressure transducer, and then that's a signal that can be fed back into the control system and recorded as well. So that's those are pretty much your two types of pressure indication at this facility.
Thank you. And for the pump number 3 that is not working, how long has it been not working, and how important is it for us to get that online as soon as possible?
Yeah, I can't recall how long it has not been operational. But it is also accompanied by 4 other pumps out there as well. So to get it back in operation, I think you're relying on pump number 1 and number 2 is sort of your daily duty pumps, and then pump number 5 is one of your fire flow pumps, essentially for just those extreme cases where more flow is needed from the system. So you do sort of have some backup covering the supply for pump number 3 at this time.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from members of council at this time? I'll ask one more time. Further questions before we go to the, nope. So thank you, Ryan, for the information you provided and for answering the questions of council. It's very important, as the water system is important for our Moorefield and Drayton residents that are on the system, but it's also important for council to make sure that we have a reliable system that is providing clean water and reliable water, as we are responsible as council for that service in Ontario for our community. So I have a recommendation here that the presentation of SEMA, Ryan Steckley, Senior Project Manager, Infrastructure, Water and Wastewater, regarding inventory condition and capital planning assessment, be received for information. A mover, please. Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Ottens. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So as I stated, we are going to move to item 9.5.1. And that is the Safe Drinking Water Act reporting, the 2020 Drayton and Warfield water systems. Mr. Bettina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, these reports are statutory requirements required by the Ministry of Environment, reporting on the quality and any of the operational concerns through of the system over the 12-month period prior to the reporting time. They basically state as I said, the condition of the system and enter any water quality issues that may have arisen over the time period. And the presentation to council is again for due diligence to ensure that council is aware of the water quality and operational issues that may have taken place, and also to provide a copy of these reports to the public by the end of March of the following year that the reports were created. Hence, these reports will be posted on our website once they are accepted by council, and they are open to viewing by the public at any point, even in hard copy if necessary, in the office.
Thank you, Mr. Bettina. Questions from council? I know Mr. Craven had a question regarding the quality of our water, and is it consumable and safe to drink? I think that was your question, Mr. Craven. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So Mr. Bettina, or we have Natalie Baker online as well, who can answer that question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Craven, yes, the water is 100% safe to drink.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hi, Natalie. I see you clicked on, and Karen, thank you. Nice to have you both. Nice to have you both here. It's been a while since we've seen you at council. Nice to have you here. There are further questions from council on this report? I did have a question actually that came to me from the public, which is something that I think you might be able to answer. And the question was, is it possible that homes closer to the treatment pumping location experience higher concentrations of chlorine in the water than those living further apart or further away from that pumping station? I didn't know the answer, and they had concern about the amount of chlorine that came into their home. So I'm going to put that out there. I don't know who's going to answer that, but
I can answer that
okay,
for
Karen?
you. Your worship, thank you. So I just wanted to let council know that in both Moorefield and Drayton, both MECP inspection reports for 2020 came back at 100%. There were no non-compliances. Everything is working well. We do provide the township with a 6-year rolling capital major maintenance plan, and that is just recommendations to the municipality of how they want to proceed with those recommendations or not. The chlorine question, if the residents are tasting or smelling the chlorine in the water, it actually means that there may not be enough chlorine in the water. It's not dangerous by any means, but it just means that it hasn't been able to do its magic and work and capture all of the things that it's supposed to capture.
That's a good answer. Thank you. Questions from council? Other questions? Mr. Craven.
To Carly, we had the same amount of chlorine in Drayton as we do in Moorefield.
Karen?
Actually, for that one, I'm going to let Dwight Hallahan, the operator, answer that because he would know that exact measurement. If Dwight could unmute, there he is.
Dwight. Hey, Dwight. Oh, you're on mute, Dwight. There you go.
No?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, yes, through you, your mayor. Yeah, the chlorine residual in the two towns are close. They change, they go up, they go down. But typically, yes, they're the same amount of chlorine in both towns.
Thank you.
So following up with my question from the resident, if a resident is having that strong chlorine, what should they do?
So sorry, I'm having a new front door installed today. I didn't know it was going to be at this time. So yes, they can contact our office and our operators will be called out to take care of it. And I'll make sure that you guys have the proper number.
Thank you. Any further questions? Not seeing any. That I have a recommendation here that Public Works Report PW 2021-04 dated March 23rd, 2021, reporting on the 2020 Drayton and Warfield water systems in accordance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, Ontario Regulation 170/03 be hereby received, and that council acknowledge receipt of the Section 11 2020 annual reports and the Schedule 22 2020 summary reports for both the Drayton water supply system and the Moorefield water supply system, satisfying legislative requirements. Okay, mover. Councillor Otten, seconder Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Sticking with water, we are going to move to item 9.7 on our agenda, which is our Wellington source water protection. So we keep water all in together. Mr. Kyle Davis is here to talk to us about source water. Mr. Kyle Davis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm pleased to present to you the 2020 annual report for the Township of Mapleton. This report is a statutory requirement as well under the Clean Water Act, and the reports must be provided to the Source Protection Authority by February 1st of each year, which they were this year as in other years. In 2020, progress continued on the implementation of source water in Mapleton as well as within the county, operating under the banner of Wellington Source Water Protection. There were 30 development applications reviewed within Township of Mapleton, including two notices to proceed that were issued. Threats verification work continued. This is the on the ground existing activities. Could be more manure application, could be fuel storage. Some of this work was interrupted due to some of the COVID restrictions, and we're at this point estimating that approximately 40% of the activities, which is actually 12 activities on a number of properties, still require action, while 60% have been either removed, confirmed, or mitigated. 21 inspections were conducted in the township in 2020. Majority of those were for prohibition to ensure that manure was not being spread within close proximity to the well. Well, one was to verify activities at a new business within the township. Risk management plans. This work also was impacted by COVID restrictions. There are 3 in process of negotiation, but none were signed off in 2020. This work was generally halted for a good part of the year, just due to the restrictions for staff, but also due to just in respect of some of the difficulties that businesses have found themselves in. There's a summary of what happened with education in the report as well. Some social media continued, websites continued. Mail-outs continued in the first part of the year, but then tailed off in the later part of the year as well due to the pandemic. And then in terms of technical work and updates to the source protection plan, the Grand River Source Protection Plan is the main plan that the township is subject to. So most of these updates were related to either policy work or technical work. So there's a quality update and a quantity update, and we've presented to council in 2020 and in 2019 about both. So the quality update did come into legal effect just February 3rd, 2021. It was primarily to do with salt policies that don't impact the township yet, but may in the future based on some proposed changes that the province has posted on the Environmental Registry of Ontario for comment back in the fall of 2020. And then there is the quantity update, which is the Tier 3 study, which we've presented to council on a number of times in the past few years. As council is aware, this is for Center Wellington. There is a wellhead protection area for quantity that has been drafted and delineated. That includes the southern part of Mapleton, including Alma. Public consultation on this, on the technical results as well as the policy, did occur not in 2020 but in 2021. Just wrapped up on March 8th a few weeks ago, and I'm happy to take questions that council may have about that. There were over 100 comments that were provided, both for the Waterloo and the Wellington portions of this update, and including some comments from Mapleton and Alma residents as well. So the GRCA is working on responses along with our staff, and those would go to the June Source Protection Committee meeting, June 17th, I believe the date is. Happy to take any questions that council may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Kyle, for your report. Questions from council members on this report? Seeing none, I thank you, Kyle, for taking those questions from our residents. I know that you've got a lot of emails in the Alma area because they're very close to Center Wellington, where your study is taking place, and they're worried about their water in that area, how it's going to draw down on their wells, or how it's going to affect future growth of Alma for that matter. So thank you for taking their questions.
Of course.
If there's no other questions from council members, I will read the recommendation. And that's that Township of Mapleton Council received Source Water Protection Report SWP 2021-02 dated March 23rd, 2021 regarding the Township of Mapleton 2020 Source Protection Annual Reports. Any further questions? Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Craven, second by Councillor Douglas. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Now we'll go back to item number 8, which we have minutes from committees. And when we get there, I have your 8.1, the recommendation of the minutes of the Mapleton Chamber of Commerce meeting held on February 17, 2021 be received for information. Mr. Douglas, would you like to speak to that?
I'm not sure I really have much to add. If there's any questions, I can try to address those with Ellie's help, maybe.
Okay, you can move it there, Mr. Douglas. I need a seconder. Councillor Martin, thank you. Okay, questions for Councillor Douglas or for Ally? Okay, I don't see any. All those in favor of receiving the report? That's carried. Thank you. Item 9.1, we have a recommendation that the Township of Mapleton Council receive clerk's report CL 2021-02 dated March 23rd, 2021 regarding a security reduction request for Wyandotte Estates subdivision phase 1, and further that council undertake to have staff reduce the amount of the developer's letter of credit to $79,000. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, sir. Nothing further to add at this time.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this? Need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Ottens moves, Councillor Craven seconds. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Item 9.1.2 is the Drayton Heights Phase 5B, and the recommendation is that the clerk's report CL 2021-03 dated March 23rd, 2021 regarding the Drayton Heights Phase 5B preliminary acceptance be hereby received for information, and further that the Township of Mapleton Council hereby approve the preliminary acceptance for the Drayton Heights Phase 5B subdivision subject to the following conditions: verification of all administrative matters, including payment of any outstanding charges and invoices by Activa, and commencement of the maintenance period as of July 16, 2020. Mover, please. Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Martin. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, anything to add to this one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, nothing further to add this time.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this one? Then all those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And moving to item 9.2, close to home. We have the recommendation here that Township of Mapleton Council received the Close to Home Report 2021-01 dated March 9th, 2021, regarding the extension of 1 year from March 31st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022 to the multi-sectoral accountability agreement, and further that council authorized the mayor and the CAO to execute the MSAA extension letter. I need a mover, please. And Councilor Otten, seconded by Councilor Craven. Thank you. And we'll turn that over. Who's speaking to this? Anybody speaking to this?
I can just, through you, Mr. Mayor, Helen's not with us today, but the report, I think, speaks for itself, and we'll get the necessary signatures this afternoon and have it delivered on time.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this one? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 9.3. 9.3.1, it's the recommendation about the water tower that the Township of Mapleton Council receive Economic Development Report ED 2021-03 dated March 23rd, 2021 regarding the water tower design public survey, and that further that Township of Mapleton Council approve the release of the Drayton water tower design survey. A mover, please. Councillor Douglas, second by Councillor Ottens, and we're going to turn that over to Ali Cripps.
Through your worship. So I think this report is pretty self-explanatory. In 2019, a report was brought to council to pick out the design for the water tower. It's been a while since that, and we're all very excited about this water tower coming, and we really want to bring that excitement into our community. And if many of you have driven probably into different townships and noticed their water tower, it is a big statement piece in the municipality. So we really want to ensure that our residents have a say in the design and look of it. So there's 4 questions. The color that we would put in a survey, it's the color of the bottoms or underside of the water tower, which logo they would like, if they would like it to say Drayton, and if they would like the design on one side of the water tower or wrapped around. And then to incentivize residents, we would have $3 $50 gift cards to local businesses. But we really want to make sure that our residents feel included in this process and bring a little bit of excitement through.
Thank you, Ali. It's a good report. It's a good thing for our residents. They're going to have some fun with this. I know residents are very excited by it. When I was out not too long ago, a number residents asked me, "What about the water tower? When's that happening? Where's it going to be? What's it going to look like?" So I know there's excitement out there. There's one family who have a little boy who can't wait to watch it being built. He's got a fascination with water towers, which is kind of neat. So having this out there for the community to participate in and having a little contest, a little fun with it, that's a good thing. Council members, questions or thoughts? Councilor Douglas.
Yeah, just a quick question through you. Not sure if it's best to Ali or maybe Mr. Martina. Wondering if there's any cost implications to any of these decisions, like for instance, number 4, if we wrap it around the water tower, it's likely going to be more expensive. But is there any sense of scale of the extra cost if we wrap it around versus just one side? Maybe we might want to have some consideration of that.
Mr. Martina.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Douglas. In the report that I presented, I believe it was in 2019, on the original logo, and council had approved a logo and the number of logos and the orientation of the logo. At that time, the cost was projected for each logo of about $15,000 to $20,000. So if you wanna double it, then if you want to put it on the other side, the considerations that that council took into consideration when they were debating the design of the logo and the proximity of the logo. So about 50.
Thank you, Ms. Martina. Councilor Brothers, that answers your question then. So there is if we go a wrap around, then this is going to be a further cost to it. Thank you for bringing that up, Councilor Douglas. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ali. Thanks for bringing this initiative forward. I think this is pretty neat and pretty, hopefully we'll get some traction and as far as excitement goes. I do have, it's not a criticism, it's a a layman's observation about the colors. So I know where the color options come from, obviously, from the Mapleton logo. The only concern I would have is that, you know, 2 out of the 3 colors are different shades of rust to me. And on a water tower makes it kind of awkward. You know, blue is fresh and water and whatever. I just have a little, I guess the green perhaps wouldn't, you know, look so bad, but you know, a rusty water tower that's brand new, it kind of just jumps at me. So I don't know, would there be options? I know where the colors come from, but would there be a possibility maybe? Well, obviously the white as well would be an option, but I just worry a little bit about if one of those 2 options are chosen, to have a rusty brand new water tower.
So Ali, can we, I guess the question is, can we add different colors to this contest or to see where people want to go with it?
Through you, Mayor, I don't see why not. If you guys would like to add colors, we can always ask the question. That might be something the public's also thinking about, so they might stay away from it. So, but if you would like to ask or add colors, there's no reason we can't.
So I do like the idea, Mr. Martin, of adding blue, as blue means water. I do like that idea. Other comments from council on that idea, adding a couple more colors or one color? Councillor Ottens?
I think I prefer the colors as they stand, partly because they already match the Mapleton logo that's imprinted on everything else. And I believe those colors were chosen partially because maple, they're the colors of the maple leaf, which match the Mapleton, and they are sort of the colors of growth. I guess one man's rust is another person's red and orange. So to me, they are the colors of things that grow, right? So the greens and the sort of the harvesty colors. And I think that's the kind of image that Mapleton was trying to project with that logo, if I do recall. So I think if you start adding too many colors in and too many options, I don't know, I think you get lost in the weeds there. Although I guess no matter what the results are, we're not bound by any of them. So it's just gathering public opinion. So heck, throw pink and purple in there. I'm sure we'll get votes for that too.
Councillor Craven, your thoughts?
I agree with Marlene. I think we should, if we can, stick with our colors from our logo. It's just kind of a follow-up to our logo, and I like the colors of our logo. But I can agree with Mike too. We don't want to look like a rusty old thing either.
So we are talking just about the underside of the tank itself. So the logo's there with all the colors of the logo are going to be there already. Just a matter of a highlight underneath. And I particularly don't want it to be plain white, but that's just me. Councilor Douglas, your thoughts?
I'm not a color guy. I don't have any preference on colors.
All right, Councilor Martin, you started this. Where are you going?
Yeah, I like I said at the start, I have a full appreciation of where the colors came from, and that they match our logo and why we have them. But I can also promise you that they were never thought of going on a water tower when that concept was created. And I would suggest that the majority of the people who will be driving by and viewing said water tower aren't going to know where the colors came from or have a real appreciation of, you know, they're going to simply go by the aesthetics of it and what it looks like. So I'm like Paul, I'm not a color guy. All I know is that it looks like rust and it's a brand new water tower. So A plus B equals C. But I'm honestly not going to lose any sleep over the color. I just thought it might be something we think about. That's all.
Mr. Martin, if you were to add one color, what color would that be to this for the public to look at? If you had one color, what would it be?
Did you just miss the part where I said I'm not a color guy?
Yes, I did, but you brought this up, so I'm asking you for one color that you would add to this for the public to look at.
I would say whatever Allie's shade of blue that she would prefer that would go on a water tower would be my choice.
All right, so can we get council consensus to have a shade of blue that Allie's going to choose? And just to put that in for the contest, can we get consensus on that? Mr. Douglas said yes. Councilor Ottens? Sure. Okay. So Al, if we can add a shade of blue then to the contest. And Councilor Douglas brought up the point about the the wraparound, costing double if we had the logo on both sides. And if we put the logo on the far side, it's going to be facing farm fields, I believe, depending on where the initial location is, depending on how we put it. Ms. Martina, do we recall where we actually had it facing? Was it facing south at towards the main part of Drayton downtown? I think that's what it was going to be.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, the council at the time decided to face the logo towards the county road, which would give it the most exposure from the highway.
So which county road, sir?
County Road 8, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, so so facing County Road 8, and then the other side would be facing fields if you did that way. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that wouldn't work out so well. If you had one part facing, to say, the downtown lights, still the other side would face fields. The only way you would have it facing two directions would be if one side was facing County Road 11, the other side was facing towards Palmerston. But then you wouldn't have anything facing County Road 8. So Mr. Douglas's point being brought up actually makes sense, Councillor Ottens.
I guess through you, your worship, if the one side faces County Road 8, wouldn't the other side be facing the industrial park and also be visible when people are approaching town from the cemetery side? So if they came into Drayton from that side, they would be able to see the name of on the water tower coming in from that direction. That would be my thought if we chose to go with that option.
I just think that myself, from the cemetery side, it looks to where the water tower is going to be located up by the arena.
Yep.
It might be a far stretch to see Mapleton from there. Just my thought.
I think we'll have to drive through other towns with water towers and see how they do it, maybe.
Ally just needs some direction whether we're going to keep it in the contest that starts this Thursday, I believe. Ally, is that correct?
It was supposed to, so we can change that date. The RFT, I believe Sam can speak to this, is getting pushed 1 week, I believe. So he can speak to that, so we can keep it aligned with that date, or we can start this week as well.
Mr. Martina, then what's the timeline that we need the public feedback and then council making a final choice on this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the actual decision on the logo, that's one of the last things that gets installed on the logo, or sorry, on the tower, which is not stated for completion till mid 2022. So there's plenty of time for a decision on the logo.
All right. So is it okay for council to let staff take a look at the directions then of where these logos would be and then make a decision based on that? Or does council want to say, no, we only want it on one side because we don't want to pay double of what the one logo would be? That's up to us. It's the financial aspect to it. So, Councilor Douglas?
I'd be okay with just keeping it on one side. And we're taking that question forward in the survey.
Okay. Anybody agree with Mr. Douglas?
Yeah, I agree with him. One side would suit me fine.
Okay, Councilor Martin stayed. Okay, so Councilor Martin also wants it on one side. So we'll just keep it to one side then, Ally, thank you. All right. Are we done beating up the water tower? Councilor Craven?
Just one more thing. There might come a time somewhere down the road, we could add it to the other side, could we or not? It'll
Down the
probably
road, sure.
cost more to do it then than to do it now probably, but it could be something we could look at in 5 or 10 years.
Well, probably at the next time we need to paint the water tower, Mr. Craven. All right, so the recommendation I've read already, we moved it and seconded it. Any more questions, comments on it? All those in favor? That's carried then. Thank you. Ally, do you have a complete understanding now where we're going with this?
Yep, we're adding a shade of blue and taking the direction or the wraparound question out.
Perfect, Ally, thank you. And next we will go with item 9.4.1. The Ontario Fire Marshal Grant Application. The recommendation is the Township of Mapleton Council approve the grant application from the Ontario Fire Marshal for funding to train firefighter members in a COVID environment. Moved by Councillor Craven, second by Councillor Douglas. Thank you. Turn this over to the chief. You're on mute, chief. You owe $5 to the pot. I say, put on your sunglasses. That's what you need. There you go.
How's that look? Okay. Which are also shade glasses, actually. I think this came in response to the fire marshal announcing the closure of the fire college. So a week ago Thursday, they announced all the fire chiefs that that day there would be an announcement that there'd be $5 million going to fire departments across Ontario to provide for training or fire prevention related to the COVID pandemic. And so it was up to the fire chiefs. The application came to us next day on Friday the 12th. We had the application had to be in by Friday the 19th. So it was a lot of scattering to come up with ideas and what we could use the money for. And in talking to our officers on Zoom and on the street type thing, we thought maybe one thing we could use to do some more in-house training is to add some laptops to be able to train in groups of platoons of 4 or 5 or 6 at a time, because the fire marshal's office and the fire college is offering a lot of blended and online courses to do your certifications now. So if we could add some laptops and also buy some of these programs to do more training, that'd be beneficial for us to get through our certification. So that's what the application went to the fire marshal's office as last Friday. So that's what we got in there now. And this is a report to just approve what we had sent into them.
Thank you, Chief. Questions from members of council? Councillor Craven.
Through you to Rick. Rick, you already answered my question. It was going to be where the laptop's going to help with virtual training, and you've already answered that, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Craven. Other questions or comments? And that's been moved and seconded. So all those in favor of this? That's carried. Moving on to item 9.5.2, Public Works Capital Quarterly Update. And I have a recommendation here that the Township of Mapleton Council receive Public Works Report PW 2021-05 dated March 23rd, 2021 regarding the 2021 Public Works Capital Program Quarterly Update number 1 for information. Moved by Councillor Douglas, second by Councillor Ottens. Thank you. Mr. Mattina.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the councillors. Sorry. So this report speaks to Asset Management Regulation 588.17 and our compliance with that regulation going forward. We have a capital forecast, capital plan for the next 10 years, and this report reflects the projects on that plan in 2021 and their status with respect to tendering. There was a resolution in December of 2020 requiring staff to put all tenders for capital related to roads, bridges, and facilities out by March 31st. So we are very close to that. We have, I think, one project that, as Ali mentioned, the water tower itself was supposed to go out on March 25th, but there's been a little hiccup in the process, and I still plan to. I still understand that it will be out by the 31st of March, but it may miss by a day or two. But otherwise, all other projects are out and in process of being either the tenders have closed or they are in process of being closed or quoted upon. I also want to mention that there might be a slight variation in the totals reflected by my spreadsheet with respect to the capital plan spreadsheet that is also attached to the report of the approved budget. The reason for that being that some of the projects on my list that we're currently working on now are carryovers from 2020. I believe that value is about 850,000 worth of 2020 carryover, and so that's one of the reasons why there's a deviation from the attachments. I'm willing to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mattina. Questions to Mr. Mattina? Councilor Douglas.
No question. I just thought I'd commend Mr. Mattina and his staff. Looks like they've been busy and got a lot of that worked out. So it looks good.
Thank you. Questions or other comments? Councilor Ottens?
Yes, I just want to pass my thanks on too. This is exactly the sort of thing that I think we were looking for when we made that motion. And I like to see these quarterly reports so that we can see the things we agreed on back, in November, December, to see them come to fruition as the year goes on. So thank you to Sam and his crew.
Thank you, Councilor Ottens. Further questions, comments? Councilor Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. +1 on the thanks, Sam.
All right. And I see a thumbs up from Councilor Craven too. That's good. So Mr. Mattina, in your report, you have road projects and sort of the scope. You kind of lay out what the process is of getting these projects going. And of course, you get the budget approved and you start that work in January after you get the budget approved to start doing all the engineering work and all the background work before you actually get the documents put together to go out to tender. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
So what do you need from council, sir, that will help you to maybe do some of that work prior to the budget coming so that you can get right into the tender work after the budget's approved?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So it would be beneficial to be able to work on some of these projects in preparatory stages the year prior to the actual tendering. There's a couple of major projects that have been that were previously approved in 2020 by council to do the pre-engineering and pre-tender work. And without that previous approval, we would not be able to add those to this list at this point and have them out for tender at this early. So yes, definitely pre-approval by council on the next year's capital expenditures would to provide the engineering services and the administrative work would certainly be of benefit.
So Mr. Mattina, then I'll ask you, are you able to provide us a report at some point in time, not in the near future, but when you have more time, that would outline the amount of funding you would need to be able to do that in this year, in 2021, for the projects of 2022 and beyond, so that we are ready a year ahead with the engineering work? Can you provide us a report for that, sir? And so we understand what the financial application of that would be?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. I think that'd be very helpful, council, if we got some of that engineering work, and Mr. Douglas, you'd know better than I would, but to get some of that engineering work and pre-work done, then actually getting the tenders out would be a lot easier on our staff. And so it kind of puts it over the 2 years instead of trying to get everything done in 3 months. So thank you. So any more questions or comments then? And I do commend Mr. Mattina and the staff and definitely worked hard to get to where we are now, and having a weak hiccup on a water tower is the only problem. Boy, that's pretty darn good if you ask me.
Thank you.
So do have that recommendation here. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Mr. Mattina. And please pass your thanks on to the staff that helped you get this done.
I will. Thank you.
Now, moving on, we have item 9.6 to the Recreation Department. This will be the first report, I believe, of our new rec department. Amy Gross is here. And we have the recommendation here that on item 9.6.1, that Township of Mapleton Council received Recreation Report REC 2021-01 dated March 15, 2021 regarding the operation of a summer camp. And further, that council approves the proposed plan to operate a summer camp within the municipality, and further, that council approves the hiring of summer camp staff. All right, I need a mover and a seconder, please. I'm going to let Councilor Ottens move that one. She's all crazy about the position and what's going on. And second by Councilor Craven. Excellent. Amy, go ahead. Your first report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, your worship, We're very excited at the rec department to be working through some pretty exciting things. As you're aware, this position started in February of 2021. And right away, we started thinking about what types of programs and things can we offer our residents. And we wanted to reach out to the children and youth. So we thought this would be a great start, a great program to initiate. So we started with our survey, and it was overwhelmingly a success. People were very excited about it right off the hop. I think in less than 24 hours, we had over 100 families respond. So we knew right away that the need is there. So our hope is that Council will want to move forward with this plan. We've been in connection with neighboring municipalities who have been running similar programs for years, as well as obviously during COVID times, public health, for some direction. We've been putting together our plan for this coming summer and would like to move forward with that to provide the opportunity for our kids to attend our own Mapleton summer camp, as we are aware that many of them actually go to neighboring municipalities for camp. And yeah, we would like to have the opportunity to have it right here in our own municipality.
Thank you, Amy. And for council, this actually falls right into our goal number 3 of our strategic plan, direction number 3, and that's to provide a municipal recreational program and a contact person. We have the contact person being Amy, and programming, that's what they're providing. So it falls right into our strategic plan that we did back in 2019. So questions or comments on this? Councillor Craven, first up.
Okay, first off, I had a couple of comments, a couple of questions from a couple of people in Alma and a couple of people in Moorefield. If there's any interest or enough interest in either Alma or Moorefield, will you be running day camps in either or both of those?
Ms. Gross.
I think for this year, we are looking at potentially starting with one location and letting it grow from there. The location is to be determined at this point. We're going to look at all of the areas within the municipality and just decide which one works best to operate a summer camp out of.
Thank you.
I know last year in Minto, they had, with COVID, they had to split the groups up. One group was in Palmerston, one in Harrison, and the groups did not interact with each other at all. And something like that could happen here, where we could have it in a couple of different places maybe.
Well, Mr. Craven, we are just starting off here, where Minto's been running theirs for a while now. So we are relying on some of their information they have, but I think a good start would be just to run and get the bugs out running one program instead of trying to run multiple ones first off the gate. Amy, do you have anything further to add to that?
I would agree. I would like, I think it would be best to start with one location, wherever that will be at this point, and be able to have a year under our belt. The goal would definitely to be able to expand and offer programming or more programming. But I think for this year, just one location is the best.
And if you look at the survey, Councillor Craven, you'll notice the survey that a large majority of the people that did the survey responded for the preferred location of a camp being in Drayton. Other questions from members of council? Councillor Ottens.
Yes, through you, your worship. Yeah, commendations again for this. Considering this has been less than a month and this whole thing has been put together already, then kudos to Amy and your department for putting this all together. And I agree with Mayor Davidson. People from our area have been driving their kids to Palmerston, so I don't think it's a stretch for someone from Moorefield to drive their children to Drayton for the same programming at this point, because we have to remember we're starting this out in the first year within the restrictions of COVID. We don't know what they'll be in the summer. So this is a pretty good program for something new, and I'm excited to see the expansion. Hopefully there'll be so much interest we can do it all over the township. So I know there's a lot of excited families, so thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments from council? Thank you, Councillor Ottens, for those comments. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Ms. Gross, just a question about, again, we just talked about the location, but as far as amenities go at a particular location, I I suppose the reverse argument would be true, that it wouldn't be a stretch for Drayton people to drive their kids to Moorefield if in fact the amenities better in Moorefield. And I would suggest it might be to run day camps out of the Maryborough Community Center with the ball diamonds there and everything really close, compared to the arena, which really has nothing around it or nothing close. Is that something, or is that part of your consideration as well?
Go ahead, Amy.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Martin. It definitely is part of the consideration. I think the other thing right now that we're balancing are those additional public health protocols in place due to COVID-19. We have to work all of those kinks out and just figure out which location will work best for that ultimately as well.
So as Amy has pointed out, there's no location has been chosen yet. They're still working on that for the best spot. And I know that Amy and I have chatted about the Councilor Martin. Amy and I have chatted about Murfield being, because a park is right there. You're absolutely right. There's not a whole lot around the arena. And if they take them down to a park, they have to go to one. So, but then we have COVID, and on top of that, and other things we have to look at. So I thank Amy for the work she's put into this. As Councillor Otten said, this is a lot of work done in a very short time, and she's not even full-time in her position yet. So, which is even grander, and she still has another report to come. So any other questions or comments? All right then. So I will ask then all those in favor? That's carried. So Amy, your first report got passed. Isn't that great? All right. So we're moving on to item 9.6.2, which is the before and after school program, another program that's been worked on. Very excited about this one as well. This is great. I know our community is going to be very, very happy to have this coming to fruition when it can, whether it be this school year or the following, or whether it be the 2021-22 school year or the following one after that, depending on how quickly we get it done. So the recommendation here is that Township of Mapleton Council receive recreation report REC 2021-02 dated March 16, 2021 regarding Mapleton's before and after school programs, and further that council approves the request to submit an RFP to the Upper Grand District School Board. So I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Ottens. Thank you. And Amy, go ahead.
Okay, so over the years, we are very aware that there is a need for child care within our municipality. Before and after school care is one of the hardest type of care to find for children. We could potentially offer, it would be a recreational program through the schools. We would run the programs for the before and after school allotment of time, and the school board would allow us the space to use. Right now, I'm just looking at the RFP and would like the opportunity to complete it and see if the school board would approve us to run this type of program. I will tell you, our schools are on the list that they are looking for and have identified as a need at this point. So I'm just hoping that we can move forward and see where we'll be at with that once it's been submitted. The Upper Grand District School Board has given us an extension due to the fact that these were due, I believe, just over a week or two ago, and we just hadn't had the opportunity due to staffing to submit the RFP on time. So yeah, we're just looking to potentially move forward with this. Upon approval, I would bring it back to you and we would go from there.
Thank you, Amy. I will put out this thank you to the Upper Grand District School Board for extending the RFP to the Township of Mapleton in this capacity. They didn't have to do that, but I know that they would like to see this before and after school program, and so they are opening it up for us to submit after the fact, because they want to see that in our schools. Questions from council? Councillor Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I wasn't aware that this was a municipal led before and after school. I always thought it was the school board or like a Y or something like that ran these systems. So is this pretty typical that what happens in other municipalities where the township actually runs the program?
Amy?
So through you to Councillor Douglas, it does happen. Definitely in a more urban area, it would be a Y or traditionally a childcare center that would run this. But it is done next door to us in a neighboring municipality through their rec program. You're able to have some funding and subsidies through the county as well in order to operate these programs.
Thank you, Amy. And yes, Councilor Douglas, you're absolutely right in other areas. And the RFP goes out every year, and none of these Ys or groups have chosen Mapleton as where they want to run programs. The same problem exists when it comes to childcare centers. Operationally, having a Y do it is a lot better. Not one has yet stepped up to want to do that for Mapleton. So this is an opportunity for the Township of Mapleton through the rec program to offer this programming at the school, still at recovering the costs through the fees, and offering fee subsidies through the county through people that need to have subsidized childcare. Councillor Ottens.
Yes, just if I have a question through you, Your Worship. So if this was run, for example, at Drayton Heights, would children from Community Christian School be able to access the programming as well? They pay the taxes, they'd be subsidizing the cost.
Amy?
So through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Ottens, that is not something. Generally what happens is the students have to be enrolled in the Upper Grand District School Board in order to have this type of program, to operate this type of program. I would say solely to the fact that it is offered on within their building, their school. That would be my thoughts on that.
Correct. It is an RFP from the Upper Grand District School Board for Upper Grand District School students.
Right, but if it's offered by if the township is subsidizing this, the school is not offering the program, it's just being held in that building, then as a township service, wouldn't it not be accessible to all township children?
Well, you're assuming that the township's subsidizing it. Just because we're running it doesn't mean it's subsidized.
Okay, well, okay.
Right? There are fee subsidies through the child care program out of the County of Wellington, which is offered for child care, period, for people that need assistance. But if this is run by our department and the cost is neutral, there's no subsidy involved with the township. Just like the summer program, right?
Right.
Right.
Yep.
We're not running it to lose money. We're running it to break
Nope.
even. Councillor Craven.
I feel that the community Christian school should be allowed to attend this. If it's our initiative, then why can't we say that we welcome them to come to it? As Marlene said, they pay their taxes just as well as anybody else.
Councillor Craven, it's because it's an Upper Grand District School Board RFP. If the community Christian school wants to host one in their school, which I think Amy has some insight on that in the past, that's up to them.
So we want to
this is Upper Grand District School Board schools. So we're talking 4 schools within the township that would be open to this. Alma, Center Peel, Drayton, and Moorefield. That's the only schools and those students that go to those schools, which are a lot of students.
So if we wanted to allow them to come, we'd have to take it to another building other than a school then.
Go ahead, Amy.
So sorry, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Craven, that becomes a totally different type of program. That becomes a licensed childcare program. What we're offering to do is a recreation program. We're basically entering the RFP partnership with the Upper Grand District School Board to run the programs out of their school for their kids. It gives the opportunity for a large amount of children within our municipality to have quality care before and after school, allowing their parents to work, and it will help sustain our economic development opportunities as well.
Thank you.
I
Further
just, I
questions?
just, I,
Mr. Craven, hang on, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have a strong opinion on before or after school programs. But I also don't think I have enough information to really form an opinion on a before or after school program at the moment. And I guess it leads to my bigger concern, particularly around this proposal, is I think the reason why I don't have that information is that it appears that there's been, legwork happening on this in the background. There's been meetings with the Upper Grand District School Board. For me, this, like, philosophically, I think council should have talked about this before, staff time or meetings with the Upper Grand. Like, I think it's great that, they've extended the deadline for us because, they've got information, I believe, from one of their surveys that there is a need locally in the community. So I mean, obviously they would like anybody at this point to run a program for them. I don't know, like, we didn't talk about this in budget time as much as, the goal would be for cost recovery. Got to be honest, that rarely happens. So there will be an element of subsidy in some form, whether that's through our manager's time or whatnot. So I struggle with this one a little bit. I don't think I'm ready to support the proposal right now, but that's not because philosophically, the before after school program, that I have a strong opinion on it. I don't think, based on the information that we have at the moment, that we really have enough, that we're really educated enough to make a decision to say, yeah, go ahead and submit an RFP. I would have loved if this would have came to council before these conversations happen, so we could even decide if it's something we want to look at. And I think it's something that we do plan for, if we're interested, if council is willing to support, that we, would propose to look at it for the next school year, right? So we have time to prepare, we have time to vet it, and look around, because I really don't have any idea, if I even think a municipality should be involved, or if I don't, right? Like, I don't know. So I'm not really I don't think I can support it at the moment, but so I'm not really looking to defeat it, because Amy, like, it's not about this particular program. I would love if we could defer this and get some more details, see what it looks like, maybe some examples of another municipality that runs it, kind of what staff support time it takes, all that stuff, because I really feel like I'm in the dark on this one, and it's not a good feeling, to be honest.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And for council, this is not something that was done behind the scenes, as Councillor Martin's alluding to. Amy has thought of this as part of her job. And when it came to a meeting that I was having with the Upper Grand District School Board trustee, I invited Amy to come to listen. And as interesting is that the Upper Grand School Board trustee brought up a before and after school program that Amy clicked with. So there wasn't anything behind the scenes, as you're alluding to. It was something that I didn't even expect to come up at this meeting that I was having. I just wanted Amy to actually meet the school board trustee because she's doing program for children. As for the need for before and after school programming, we need before and after school programming in the Township of Mapleton. It's been a need that's been going on for many years. I've been working with the county for 6 years to get some kind of daycare before and after school programming here in the township. This is an opportunity for the township to step up, because no one else is stepping up to do it here. We're not going to get a childcare center anytime soon. And we need to have before and after school programming, as Amy has put forth. It is one of the hardest daycare opportunities for people of our community to access. Before school and after school. School takes care of them, but they need something before and after to help them out. We have an opportunity from the Upper Grand District School Board to actually put forth this RFP. And it is you're right, Councilor Martin. We don't know the whole ins and outs of this, but we know that we just passed for a summer school program. Basically, we don't know all the ins and outs of that either, but it's something that we have in our, strategic plan to offer programming. And Minto is offering a before and after school program. They've been offering it for a couple of years now. I can't remember the exact date they started. It's running successfully. Amy's been in contact with them over there, and some of the information she has is from them. Amy's been in contact with the county, and another meeting is coming up with the county and the school board regarding this. So you're right, there's still more information to come forward, but the opportunity is there for us now to put in there, offered by Upper Grand District School Board, to put in the RFP to say we will run one within the township, and we will hire staff to do that. I can tell you right now, Councillor Martin, if we were to go out to, Amy's already done a public survey, or if we go out doing a public survey right now, we'd have all kinds of people saying, yes, we need it. And that survey has not just been done by Amy, that was done 3 years ago by the county as well. When we had meetings at the library, I think Councillor Ottens and Councillor Craven were both at the meeting when we talked about childcare. And it's an absolute need within the township of Mapleton, not just in Drayton, not in Moorefield, but the entire township needs school programs or childcare. So we're very lucky, as far as I'm concerned, that the school board is allowing us the opportunity to put this RFP forward. And there was no backroom dealing. This is something that came up innocently. And Amy was, like I said, invited to this meeting by myself that I already had pre-booked. And we had no idea this is the direction that it went. But then our school board trustee decided that, you know what, let me bring this forward to the school board and see if I can get you into that RFP process. And that's where we land right now. And that's why Amy's putting this together for council to consider. Because it's very important that we have this, and the school board sees it, we see it here, the county sees it, and it's just up to us to either say, yes, we want to deliver this type of program because no one else will, or we're going to say, no, we don't want this type of program. I can tell you that Amy, after having conversations with her, was working on a similar program at the Christian school a number of years ago and had gone a long way to get it done at the Christian school. And then a new board came in and changed the rules, and that would put that aside. So the Christian school could have had this program a number of years ago. So that's neither here nor there right now, but let's look at what we have in front of us. We have an opportunity to give our citizens, give our parents the opportunity to have a before and after school programming in our local schools. So I'll open it up for further comments and questions. Councillor Martin. No, sorry, Councillor Ottens.
Yes, no, thank you through you, your worship. I don't dispute the need for this either. I do recall from various different county-based reports that Mapleton has a higher percentage of children under 18 than any of our other townships in the county, and by a very wide margin. So, and ironically, we're also the only one without childcare, which Mayor Davidson has pointed out, which seems incongruous as, as two statistics, like we'd have the most kids and the fewest daycare spaces. So I can see that this program is necessary. And ideally, if this comes to a head and becomes something, then it would be nice if it could be expanded and wherever it's wanted, I guess. And I'll just leave it at that.
Further questions from council? Councillor Craven?
Yeah, that thing that you and I and Marlene were at the school there, what was it, 3-4 years ago, there were several people that night that wanted to sign a sheet of paper, sign up for daycare right then and there. So there is a demand for it. There's it's just too bad we can't include the Christian school on.
Further questions, comments? Councillor Martin.
So I would agree that the demand is there. It's been pretty evident. I know Amy's report says, 40% of respondents in your survey, and that was a survey about summer camps. That wasn't even the survey about before and after schools. That was merely a question that was inserted right as part of an information gathering. So you know, kind of a target audience for summer camps. So like, and I'm not even suggesting we need to you know, create more surveys, but I just think we really need to pace ourselves and make sure a process is followed, and that, you know, whether it's Drayton, Alma, Marlborough public schools, you know, if it gets rolled out, then, you know, I think we need to have the ability to see where the demand is in each center and whether it gets options. So if we do decide to go this route, then, you know, maybe it can get rolled out at all 3 schools, or maybe we start at 1. I don't think we have enough information really to make that determination. So all I'm saying is, you know, it's a process, and it's a process that should be led by council, and that's how I'd like it to be. And so I just like to get some more information before we actually make a decision on this.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Further questions, thoughts? Amy, final comments?
No, through you, your worship, as everybody is aware and has acknowledged, there definitely is a need in our area, and hopefully we will figure out a way to offer that for our residents and our children here in Mapleton. My experiences with the Mapleton nursery school that functions outside of the community Christian school also made it very, very, very precedent that the needs there for sure.
Thank you, Amy. There's no more questions or comments. Councilor Martin, do you have another question or comment?
I was going to make, if Councilor Douglas has a question, I was going to make a motion to defer, but if someone has a question, that should probably happen before that. So I'll hold off.
Councilor Douglas?
Yes, I was just wondering what the response to the RFP actually looks like, and if by responding to the RFP and the school board's accepting it, does that then commit us to proceeding, or is there another kick at the can afterwards?
Amy, did you have a timeline? Did the upgrade of this district school board give you a timeline when they want this RFP back?
No, they are just asking that we are able to complete it as soon as possible, as most of them, obviously it has closed and they are working at putting things in place for the next coming school year. I will say though that I do know that other neighboring municipalities who are currently successfully offering this program have been contacted by the county and by the school board asking if they would run it in our schools, since we haven't shown interest in the past. So that's something that it would be nice if it were to be run through a municipality, that it's run through ours for our children as opposed to a neighboring one.
Thank you, Amy. Councilor, anybody else right now? Councilor Martin, then you want to do your motion?
Yeah, if I could, I'd just like to make a motion to defer, just so we can get some more information on what this program would entail and budget requirements.
I need a seconder for Councilor Martin's. That's seconded by Councilor Douglas. Okay, so we have a motion to defer. Any questions, comments on motion to defer?
Yeah, I just one comment. Can we, if we defer this, can we have it back in 4 weeks or whatever the council meeting is late in April to make a decision on this? I don't want to wait too much longer than that, I don't think.
Well, I think Councilor Craven, that deferring it could mean 2 things. It could mean that we have to bring it back at next council meeting, or there could be a possibility that the Upper Grand District School Board will say, no, thank you. So we have both those things that could happen. We don't know, because we don't know. They wanted it back as soon as possible because it is already closed. So I don't know what that means. And I think that would be a question that Amy could possibly bring up at her meeting with them this week.
So if we defer it, then that would mean that the Upper Grand Board would actually make a decision for us then, probably, would they?
Well, what we're doing right now is the motion is for Amy to put together the RFP. So if Upper Grand District School Board wants it at as early as possible, which they suggested, as Amy said, and they decide that 4 weeks from now is too long, then we would lose that ability to do that RFP. Plus, the fact is that if we defer it, Amy still didn't have approval to do the RFP until we actually make that comment or actually approve it, which if we do that from 2 weeks from now, then she still has to put together the RFP. So it could be problematic deferring it, is all I'm suggesting. We don't know yet. Mr. Barron.
May I suggest, through your worship, if it is deferred, in the background, we can fill out the RFP and gather more information to make sure that council is kept up to date on the request for more information. And if at that time council is satisfied with the information and give us an approval to move forward, then Amy, being as good as she is at her job, would literally almost have it complete, so that there's no delay from the 2-week period of the next council meeting.
Councilor Craven.
Could we check with the Upper Grand to see if they would give us any kind of a date when they would like this back in, just to be on the safe side, so we don't miss the vote?
Well, we could do that, Councilor Craven. That meeting doesn't take place until a couple of days from now. We can't do it right now. We're in council session. That's,
Well,
I guess,
no, but I mean,
I guess that's one of the
no.
issues we have, is we don't know what the timeline is, that they just said as soon as possible.
But if we defer today, and you find out that they want it in 2 weeks, then could you do a telephone survey of councillors to see if we could go ahead or not, or?
I'd have to call a special meeting then, Councilor Craven. You can't do it by telephone. So if they want it before the next 2 weeks, we'd have to call a special council meeting. And say if Upper Grand District School Board said you have 2 weeks to submit it, we'd have to call another special council meeting prior to, so that 1, we can approve the RFP, and 2, Amy has time to get it all done in that 2-week period. Councilor Martin.
So I know motions to defer aren't debatable, but since we're engaging, you know,
They are debatable.
I'm not.
Yes, they are.
They're not.
They are.
It's in the procedural bylaw. I'm not suggesting that I dislike the idea. I would just say we don't have enough information, and that I would suggest that if we give support for Amy to, to apply to this RFP, we should be supporting it in theory, right? We don't want to support this RFP, have it, you don't have to waste time looking it up. I really don't care that much. I was just pointing it out. That we really should be supporting it in principle, right? And if the Upper Grand District School Board would accept the RFP, then we should be moving forward, right? So I'm just trying to be careful that we're not, we don't say like, go ahead and fill out the RFP, and then once it's done, we ixnay it because we don't like it, right? Like, that's not cool. That's not fair to you, Amy, or to anybody, right? So I would just, I would like this to be deferred until we have more information. Once staff feel that we have that information, it can be brought back. If that's the next council meeting, fine. If it's a month, if it's 2 months, take the time that we need to get some more information on it, and then I'll cast my vote either way, right? So that's just what I'm looking for right now.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor to defer. It's been seconded. And we'll do the vote. All those in favor of deferral? Those opposed to deferral? That motion is lost. Then we'll move on to further discussion, if there is any, on this. No other questions, comments on this? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor of the main motion? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on then to item number 10, approval of bylaws. That bylaw numbered 2021-025 and 2021-026. Hang on a second here. that bylaws number 2021-025 to 2121-026 be hereby ready first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and sealed with a corporate seal. Any questions or comments on those two bylaws? Councillor Douglas.
Yes, through your worship, just on bylaw 2021-25, just under point 1, it says the head of council or treasurer or both are hereby authorized to borrow. I'm just questioning the head of council as opposed to council. Just wondering why the head of council would need to borrow.
Mr. Morrison?
Your worship, the legal words came to us from the RBC legal team, who basically used a template common throughout most of the municipalities. So if you went and Google searched other bylaws of a similar type, you'll see the similar type of wording, head of council. I just believe it's because the mayor is the head of council and the mayor is technically in charge of the organization. So the RBC wants it to make it clear that should we be borrowing, we better have council aware that it is proceeding with that borrowing.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas, does that answer your question?
I guess so. I'm just, I don't know, I'm a little uncomfortable with the wording. No disrespect to you as head of council, but just for even down the road, others, I'd just be more satisfied if it's, worded differently. And I understand what Mr. Morrison's saying, but I just think it's open to interpretation as to what that means.
I can research that for next year and potentially revise the wording.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, do you have a question or comment? Your mic's open, that's why I just wondered.
No, sorry, hope I didn't make any untoward sounds. I was supposed to be muted.
All right, perfect. Anything else then? Then all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And next we have correspondence for council's direction. We have item 11.1, Norfolk County Council letter dated February 23rd, 2021. And the recommendation is that the letter dated December 7th, 2020, authored by the Norfolk County Agriculture Advisory Board, and the letter dated February 23rd, 2021, authored by Norfolk County Council regarding carbon tax on primary agricultural producers be received for information, and that the Township of Mapleton Council supports the position that the federal government move to exempt all primary agricultural producers from current and future carbon taxes. This should include natural gas, propane, gasoline, and diesel. And further, that the clerk be directed to advise the following parties of the Township of Mapleton Council's position on the matter: Norfolk County Council, Norfolk County Agriculture Advisory Board, Minister of Environment and Climate Change Canada, Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, John Nader, Member of Parliament, Perth, Wellington, Ontario Federation of Agriculture, and Wellington Federation of Agriculture. I believe Councillor Ottens, you're moving this? Is this the one you brought up last meeting? Or was this Councillor Craven? Councillor Craven?
Actually, I brought it up, yes.
Okay, so you're moving this, sir?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a seconder then? Councillor Ottens, all right. Discussion from council then? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I don't mind the idea of this, I guess, but I think the whole goal of a carbon tax is to have those who are producing said carbon to compensate accordingly in the shape of a tax. I struggle a little bit with acting as an advocacy group on the part, or for one particular group. I think that particular sector has an ability to cast their vote come election time to make decisions on a carbon tax. I don't know. I think if you exempt one sector who produce carbon, the whole goal is to try and restrict greenhouse emissions and global warming and all that stuff. I struggle to, I understand the rationale for the ag community, but I'm struggling a little bit, I guess.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Councilor Craven, do you have anything to add to this?
Not really. And I can sympathize with Mike's comment a little bit too. The construction industry with all their machines and trucks and so on certainly aren't exempt, and maybe they should be too. But here in Mapleton, we have to deal with the farmers and a high concentration of agriculture products going out of this township. So though the farmers are a bigger concern than the construction industry, as far as that goes.
Thank you. Further, Councilor Douglas?
I'd just like to echo Councilor Martin's concerns, because who's next? The transportation, like the trucking industry, like I just don't know if I'm interested in really being part of any of these oceans.
Thank you, Councilor Douglas. Any other questions, comments? All right, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's lost. Correspondence for council's information. We have a number of items on there. Anything that someone wants to speak to? We do have item number 12.6, which is the County Solid Waste Services letter regarding annual spring cleanup. We will be doing one of those in the township. The staff are already working on doing that on our behalf, and information will be further coming out on that for a community-wide cleanup. I believe, I don't think we have a date yet, Mr. Barron. I think it's April or May. Is that what we're heading for?
Actually, Amy and Ali are working on that right now. There should be something coming out very shortly with the plan. And they're going to, from what I understand, come up with a bit of a contest to encourage our residents to take part.
Thank you. Anything else? Councillor Ottens.
Yes, through you, your worship. Just want to draw attention to item 12.1.
Yes.
The achievement award to our CAO from the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association. Perhaps Manny could speak to that for a minute.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic you brought that up, because I was going to leave that to the end of this, but go ahead, Mr. Barron, talk about how you've got this award.
Well, first, let me say, although my name is on that, I can absolutely say that it's not me. It's the group of CAOs, including the county, that were nominated, not just me. So the award is actually presented to the group of CAOs within Wellington County. It just happens that they wrote the letter with my name on it, but I want to say it was a group effort, and it was kind of nice to get that.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? All right. We'll move on to notices of motion. We have two notice of motions on here, item 13.1 and 13.2. Item 13.1, Councillor Ottens has decided that she's going to, well, Councillor Ottens, go ahead and speak to this.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I'm going to withdraw that motion, and so that it can go through the Parks and Rec first and let it come through there. And that's part of a procedural adjustment as well.
Thank you. So Mr. Martina will refer this one to Parks and Rec for the next committee meeting then.
Yes, thank you. Will do.
Right. And Councillor Martin, you have a notice of motion here that that's on the agenda here. So that will come to the next council meeting for discussion. And Mr. Clerk, are we able to put on with that motion, the bylaw so that council can read the bylaw at the next meeting of council as well?
Definitely, through you, Mr. Mayor, I can make sure that there's the pertinent information is attached.
Thank you, sir. And next, item number 14, we have notice of provision, which is the special council meeting we're going to do tomorrow. And at 5:30, municipal comprehensive review. We're going to do that and take a look at our MCR for the township. It starts at 5:30. We will have, we will be here at the council chambers doing that. And we will provide dinner starting at about 5 o'clock for council members to come. And we will eat and then start into the meeting.
Does everybody like cucumber sandwiches?
All right, and other business. Do we have any other business? Seeing none, I will tell Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin, you are absolutely right, sir. I was wrong. Deferral, not debatable under our procedural bylaws. Thank you, sir. I was looking at the wrong line. So thank you for pointing that out. My mistake. Anyway, moving on. Closed session. So we have item 16.1, rise and report on the closed session. I'm going to report out. This is the closed session convened on March 9th. Reporting out that review and adoption of the closed session minutes dated February 24th, 2021, and labor relations or employee negotiations CAO 2021 performance management workbook. And item 16.2, we have a recommendation here that subsequent to the council adopting the confirmatory bylaw and adjournment of the regular council meeting, Township of Mapleton Council move into a closed session for the following reasons: review of closed session minutes, March 9th, 2021, a proposed or pending disposition of land by the municipality, proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality, labor relations or employee negotiations, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. Any questions or comments on this right now? All those in favor then? That's carried. And confirmatory bylaw, item number 17.1, that the bylaw number 2021-027 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council of the corporation of the Township of Mapleton be hereby read a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. All those in favor? That's carried. We're going to have a 10-minute recess and come back to closed.